The time has come for another Disney era ranking, and this is a special one. To some, it is known as the second dark age of Disney. Others refer to it as the experimental era or the age of adventure, the underrated era. And then there are those of us who call it simply the post-Renaissance. Though there is one who dubs it as the variety pack of Disney, for you see it comes equipped with both CGI and traditionally animated films. It has adventures, comedies, sci-fis, and fantasies. It has movies that will make you cry, movies that will make you think, movies that will make you laugh.
Dude, are you trying to convince people that the Disney post-Renaissance is a good era of animation again?
Yes! And you can't stop me. I'll never stop trying, for you see, I will never give up. I will never surrender. You can't silence me anymore because I... Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. Today we are continuing on with the Disney era rankings with the post-Renaissance, which consists of a lot of fan favorites, as I know many of us grew up alongside this era. I, for one, was born towards the tail end of the Renaissance, so most of those films had already come out. They were already on TV, or I had them on VHS. And so the post-Renaissance is really the era that had films coming out in the theaters during my childhood. And so it holds a special place in my heart. I know it's not the best, but I would argue that its best films could go toe-to-toe with the best films from other eras, such as the Renaissance or even the current Disney revival. So this will definitely be a controversial ranking, as I know many of us cling to different films within this era. So just a gentle reminder, please be civil in the comments as you share rankings of your own. Remember, at the end of the day, we're all Disney fans here. If you're not caught up on this series, you can hit this playlist right up here and check out the other Disney era rankings I've done so far. However, the films we'll be ranking today are as shown on the screen, and you can find them in the description as well. Similar to what I did with the Golden Age, I will not be ranking Fantasia 2000 as it doesn't really tell a cohesive narrative. It's more of a showcase and spectacle of animation and music. I still believe it should be celebrated, and feel free to include it in your own rankings, but I'll be skipping that one for today. However, that's more than enough of an introduction. Let's get started with the ranking. Starting off at the bottom, I am going to cheat a little bit right off the bat and give you my bottom three, because these change depending on how I'm feeling and what I'm looking for. And I really don't think that there is a decisive bottom of the barrel movie within the post-Renaissance. That said, I don't believe I'm alone in thinking that Dinosaur, Chicken Little, and Home on the Range are the runts of the litter, all for very different reasons. I've seen dozens of different rankings, all sharing these at the bottom, and in all honesty, compared to previous eras, I don't think these bottom three are all that bad. I actually quite like them. Dinosaur was a great experiment from Disney, and while it's hard to even picture this as a Disney film, it set up the groundwork for the studio and allowed them to get where they are today. Its use of a real-world environment coupled with CGI fooled me as a kid into thinking that it was real.
Oh my god, how did they recover this footage from the dinosaur age?
Now obviously the film has aged a bit in the last 20 years, and it's evident watching now that VFX has come a very long way since, but it still captures the emotion within the story and its characters very well. In fact, I think it's leagues ahead of the live action Lion King in that regard.
All of this will belong to me?
It belongs to no one, but will be yours to protect.
Dinosaur has this epic adventure story that is very telling of this era, as well as heroic and dynamic characters. However, it's a shockingly dark and violent movie, which is all made worse given the fact of how real the movie looks and feels. However, a lot of people love that darker style of storytelling. I myself loved it as a kid and rewatched this on repeat for like at least a year. And while it's not my go-to for a Disney film anymore, I can still see a lot of people resonating with this story of leadership, community, and survival. But another movie in this era that touches on similar themes and shares a spot in my bottom three, we have Home on the Range. And this is a weird one because for the most part, nobody talks about this film. I myself had not seen the whole thing until I sat down to rewatch all of the post-Renaissance, and I gotta tell you, I don't know why people aren't talking about this more. Now don't get me wrong, I've seen dozens of rankings where the ranker just absolutely unloads a pile of hate onto this film. However, I also know a few people in real life who claim this to be their favorite, not just from the era, but from Disney as a whole, which, let's be honest, that's a bit ridiculous. But nevertheless, truth be told, I was pleasantly surprised by what this film had to offer. Now, something about me, I am not the biggest fan of Wild West stories for silly reasons that I won't go into, so starting one is always tough for me, and for me to keep watching or reading, the story really needs to grab my attention quickly and find a way to make me care. And the opening song, coupled with some hilarious visuals, especially with the ill-named Lucky Jack, did a fantastic job of setting the scene and laying the groundwork of intrigue for a story that they could tell within this world.
Out with a banner, a whole lot better. If you're the type with a nervous bladder, yeah, your saddle's gonna ring.
Now the story itself is fairly simple. A trio of cows go on a quest to save their farm from foreclosure and the dastardly Alameda Slim. However, it weaves a couple other plot lines together so well that one twist in particular caught me completely by surprise. Others have also complained that the main characters, primarily the cows Maggie, Grace, and Mrs. Calloway, are unlikable and boring, and while I can agree that they are not the most exciting or well-written characters from Disney, they are most certainly underrated in terms of their humor, their character arcs, and their overall dynamics as a group. I thoroughly enjoyed and felt invested in their story, and while the emotion can be a little bit all over the place at times, this is still a solid film for kids that gets to the point while having good lessons to tell. Its villain, Alameda Slim, is also worth mentioning here. I think with more screen time, he could have easily become an iconic Disney villain. His yodeling makes for a great time, his evil plans are sophisticated yet simple enough for a child to follow, and his goofy sidekicks make every scene they're in funny and memorable. And speaking of funny, the film really knows how to use its hand-drawn medium to its advantage without going so over the top that the story loses impact.
Well, you take that can and hey! Whoa! Come back here, you little bacon bits!
Don't you have enough cans of your own?
No, not really.
It embraces the fun, goofy side of animation, something you'll hear me say a lot today, and it comes equipped with great action, silly songs, and character archetypes that will never grow old. Honestly, if you're like me and you've never seen this film because it is so poorly regarded within the fandom, I would say give it a try. You might just be surprised. However, there is one more film that competes on its level for me, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here because it is the outlier of the era. It's the black sheep. It's the ugly duck. That's right. It's Chicken Little. Now, I can understand some of the harsh criticism that this film receives. I can understand that from a plot perspective, it grows weak after its first act when it incorporates aliens and just kind of goes off the deep end. And I can understand that visually, it's probably the weakest of the entire era, especially of the ones that use Disney's now staple, bulky 3D animation style. And I can also understand that the characters may not be likable for some. But ever since its release, it's been one that I've enjoyed and is highly nostalgic for me personally. I think it's a ton of fun, and even on rewatch, it's easy for me to embrace it for what it is and relate to it on an emotional level. Chicken Little is a hyper-focused, resilient character that kids can and should look up to because he doesn't back down due to his size or the bullies that get in his way. He's creative in his problem solving and surrounds himself with supportive and kind friends. To me, that sounds like a compelling character, and with enough jokes sprinkled in there for him, I quickly attached to him as a kid. Now, while the emotional, character-driven story that is present with him and his father is one I wished aged a bit better as I grew up, similar to a Goofy movie's relationship between Max and Goofy, it still does a fine job at providing motivation for Chicken Little's and Buck Cluck's characters. Look, it's a crazy film. It's wacky and silly, and perhaps it would have served better with a more traditional 2D animation style and a more streamlined, less quirky soundtrack. However, for me, it just works. It always has, and it always will. So those are my bottom 3. Dinosaur, the dark epic that is hyper-realistic, Home on the Range, the underdog of the era, and Chicken Little, the overhated and underrated wacky tale filled with chickens and ducks and fish out of luck. But moving on to number 7, I have Brother Bear. This is another one that I've seen have a lot of divided responses. Some people love the film and have it in their top 3, and some have it towards the very bottom. I myself have always enjoyed it and have some very fond memories of it. However, on rewatch, it has lost a little bit of that magic for me, which I'll do my best to explain.
No, I mean, I'm not a bear. I hate bears.
Well, gee, eh? You're one big beaver.
This is like the Tarzan of the post-Renaissance. You have this fish out of water story going on in the wild, and Phil Collins just singing his little heart out, providing some of the best songs of the entire era. Honestly, the more I think about it, this might just have the best soundtrack within the post-Renaissance. However, as for its other components, there is some give and take to be noted. Starting off with the good, I love the characters and the overall premise. There is a good story to be told here that comes with a good amount of emotion. There's this tense, dramatic irony going on, especially with Kenai's secret about killing Koda's mother, and this allows for some very impactful moments throughout the film. Like I said, this era to many people is seen as the second dark age of Disney, and with themes like death and our place in the universe, Brother Bear fits that bill. It's darker and more serious, which is why its soundtrack, its softer animation style, and every joke that's woven into its dialogue assist with its overall balance as a Disney film and help to contrast those heavier moments. And when you have these conflicting themes and styles and techniques, some people will walk away less satisfied than others, thinking that it doesn't all mesh that well together. But in reality, at least in my opinion, I think it really helps children to ponder these heavier themes of life while being able to enjoy the more lighthearted components. That said, the plot itself is very much like a lean piece of meat. There's not a lot of fat on this cut, but there's also not a whole ton of seasoning either. The film is very straightforward and very intentional with its themes and lessons, and so after watching it, I feel like there's nothing really calling me back to rewatch it all that soon. It's an enjoyable film for me, however it does require at least a couple years between its rewatches. Moving up the ladder, number 6 has gotta be Treasure Planet. The post-Renaissance is full of these underrated hidden gems that are flying underneath people's radars, and I think there's a large community that would agree that these next 2 films on my list might be the most underrated films within Disney's archive, the first of which is Treasure Planet. Now, Treasure Island has been my personal favorite piece of classical literature ever since I first read it back in middle school, and so a sci-fi spin-off of that story and its characters has always been a no-brainer to me. And in terms of old school animation, Treasure Planet is the complete package. It's a fantastic adaptation of the story that comes equipped with fun extraterrestrial takes on its characters, explosive action sequences, and a score filled with seafaring fanfares that make your heart soar and immerse you into the film. Jim and Silver's relationship is certainly the driving force of the emotion within this story, and it's a tough one to nail as they are complex and heartfelt characters, but I think it's handled well here. There's a surface level relationship that's easy for kids to track, but there's also more intricate components to their friendship that helps the film to age well. At the end of the day, it's not a perfect movie. It's definitely a more Disney-fied version of the original story, but to me, it's always worked really well and is deserving of more recognition these days. But kicking off my top 5, the other underrated gem of the era and another fantastical epic adventure, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. If there's any film that people are actually pining for a live-action remake of, it's Atlantis. I have not seen more fan casting articles and posts on social media for a Disney remake than I have for Atlantis, at least within the more alternative outlets that I follow, and I can think of no other film more deserving of such massive praise. To its core, Atlantis is an epic love story. It's a romance between 2 very different characters from very different cultures and different worlds. It's a love letter to adventure, exploration, and innovation, and it's a testament to the power and inspiration that animation and the creative minds behind it create on a daily basis. With this film, we see Disney incorporating more CGI elements with its traditional animation style as it continues to explore the medium. We get a very unique cast of characters with intricate relationships and dynamics, and we get fun twists on Atlantean lore and history as the film delves into more mature and complicated morals such as capitalistic greed as well as their consequences. It's a truly remarkable film, and the only reason I have it lower on my list and not at the top, as I'm sure many of you do, is because of its heavier nature. It's not really a movie I can just put on in the background. I want to be dialed in and focused when I watch this one, and I have to be in the mood for it. And so coming in at number 4 is 2008's Bolt. And what can I say? This is a fun flick. The character dynamics going on with a despondent stray alley cat teaching a Hollywood action dog actor how to be a regular dog with a side of crazy hamster fanatic named Rhino. It's just also perfectly fun and entertaining. And while I was really hoping as a kid that the whole movie would have been more like its opening action sequence, the cross-country road trip film that we do get is a perfect blend of fun, danger, and heart. The film knows how to make you cry and feel for not only Bolt, but Mittens and Penny as well, and it certainly has a great sense of humor. This is probably the second funniest film in the entire era for me.
Would you tell the crazy canine that he's got the wrong cat?
You got her, pal.
That's her.
She's the one.
That is definitely the right cat.
We're gonna have to do things a little differently.
Stealth mode.
Overall, it's a very well-balanced film, with its weakest component probably being its music, which is still quite strong in all honesty. I feel like if they could have found some more defining songs to throw into its soundtrack, it would have been more special, and the score itself is fine, but it does teeter on the edge of generic action music at times. But again, that said, I still think there are plenty of good pieces in there to help set it apart from the others on this list. But taking the number 3 spot is the funniest movie in the post-Renaissance. That's right, The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
The sheer number of memes alone drawn from this film prove how big of a mark it's left on my generation's culture. The movie knows what it wants to be from the get-go, a fun, whimsical adventure with just a little bit of heart thrown in there to teach kids that being kind and generous gains you friends, while being arrogant and selfish gains you enemies. As with Home on the Range, Emperor's New Groove has fun with its 2D animation style, breaking that fourth wall, adding in tons of meta jokes, and just embracing the silliness. Its score works in tandem on this as well at points, throwing in some catchy musical numbers and a jazzy theme that adds to the layers of fun happening on screen.
No, break.
Longtime subscribers on this channel will know that I am a sucker for redemption arcs. Cars' Lightning McQueen and Avatar's Prince Zuko are prime examples of characters that learn the error of their ways and just do a 180. And so having Emperor Kuzco take this path and develop into a very likable character by the end just goes to show how great a character arc can be within a silly film like this, which I just absolutely love. I know some people don't fully resonate with its story or its characters, but for me, this has always been one of Disney's better comedies. It knows how to let loose and have fun, it never takes itself too seriously, and it still has a story worth telling. But next up, my runner-up, and probably the most controversial pick I have on this list. My number 2 is Meet the Robinsons. I know it's not the prettiest, and I know it can be messy with its plot at times given its very basic use of time travel. However, this one is just so dang hard for me not to love. I have always been able to relate to Lewis on a personal level, him being a boy who just wants a family and wants to fit in. I mean, that's all that any of us really want at the end of the day. And watching him learn that he's right where he needs to be, he's on the right path, he just needs to recalibrate his outlook on life and keep moving forward. For me, it all creates the perfect storm narratively. There is no movie that makes me cry like Meet the Robinsons. It never fails to just absolutely wreck me, especially with those last 5 minutes. And I just don't think a bad film, or even a mediocre film, would be able to do that. Similar to the last two, it's a well-balanced movie. It has fun, whimsical moments, and certainly colorful and unique characters. It has fun with its zany plot, and yet it still never loses sight of its heart. And besides Lewis, another character that I absolutely love is Goob, aka Boiler Hat Guy, aka off-brand Heinz Doofenshmirtz, which, by the way, fun fact, both characters premiered in 2007. I mean, there are just some moments where Goob just sends me into a roaring laughter, and the worst part of it is I feel like he's not even trying.
Hey, Goob, what's up? Cool binder.
Hey, Goob, wanna come over to my house today?
They all hated me.
Very well, Miss Johnson?
It's Ms.
It's an untraditional film in every aspect, but that's partly what I love about it and what makes it work so well for me. I found the quirky lives of its characters instantly relatable, and they continue to be with every rewatch. I just never see myself growing tired of this movie. It's perfect. However, my number one, the movie I think will stand the test of time from the post-Renaissance, has gotta be Lilo and Stitch. This is just such a solid film that wears its heart on its sleeve while simultaneously embracing its wacky components, which, by the way, if you haven't been able to tell by the trend of my top picks, I have a type. Lilo and Stitch has so much going on the more that you think about it. It has this Calvin and Hobbes vibe with a semi-psycho kid and her animal best friend that only she can understand. It's also a silly parody on Superman's arrival to Earth. Fun fact, the film was actually originally going to be set in Kansas before the animators pushed for the Hawaiian setting. And I'm sorry, Kansans, but can you blame them? The film's characters, the galactic politics at play, its art style, and its respect and admiration for Hawaiian culture, heck, even its story structure, all feel so unique. There's not a single scene that loses my attention as it blends family drama rather seamlessly with sci-fi action weirdness. And of course, at the heart of it, its character study on relationships such as Lilo's and Nani's sisterhood and Stitch's outcast reputation are all so genuine and relatable. Similar to Meet the Robinsons, it touches on those themes of finding a place to call home, finding that place where we belong, and it does so beautifully. The post-Renaissance era is certainly the oddball of Disney's lineup in a lot of ways, and Lilo and Stitch is probably the era's most staple film. It's made by and for the outcasts out there, the black sheep, the ugly ducks, and man, do I just love it to death. But those are just my thoughts, and that is just my ranking on the post-Renaissance films. My ranking is most certainly not the correct one, and I would love to see yours down in the comments below. What's your favorite movie? What's your least favorite movie? Your favorite characters? Your favorite moments? I want to hear it all, and I will read it all. We've only got one more era left to rank after this one. However, if I wait long enough, maybe a more obvious split will announce itself, and we'll have 2 eras left to rank, because let's be honest, the Disney revival is getting a little bit long. But have no fear, after that I'll probably do a ranking on the eras themselves, and then I'll move on to other studios such as DreamWorks and Illumination. But feel free to stick around and check out the other ranking videos I have. I would love to get your thoughts on them. If you're a fan of animation, superheroes, book reviews, video essays, maybe a little bit of horror, you're in the right place. We talk about it all here. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and share this video with someone who loves Disney as much as you do. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.